The night was quiet in the small town. The streets were empty, the houses dark, and the air still. Only the sound of crickets filled the silence. In a little wooden house at the edge of the forest lived a man named Daniel. He was an ordinary man, living a simple life. He had no family left, no close friends nearby. The only companion he had was his dog, Max. Max was more than a pet. He was family, a protector, and a reason for Daniel to smile after long, lonely days. Daniel often walked with Max in the forest. Max was strong, brave, and playful. He had a thick brown coat and sharp, watchful eyes. If Daniel ever felt uneasy, Max was always there, barking and standing guard. That night seemed no different from the others. Daniel fed Max, patted his head, and opened the door to let him out for a short run before bed. Max loved the forest. He always returned after a few minutes, tail wagging, happy to be home again. But that night, he did not return. At first, Daniel waited calmly. He thought, maybe Max found a rabbit. Maybe he is chasing something through the trees. But the minutes turned into an hour. The forest grew darker, and the sound of the crickets was joined by an unsettling silence. The wind picked up, making the branches groan. Daniel stood by the door and whistled. "Max, come on, boy." His voice echoed, but there was no sound of paws running back, no bark, no sign of Max. A cold worry filled his chest. Max had never stayed out this long before. Daniel grabbed a flashlight, put on his coat, and stepped into the night. The beam of light cut through the darkness, but the forest felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself carried secrets. The trees loomed tall, their shadows twisting and stretching across the ground. Every crack of a twig made Daniel freeze. "Max!" he called again, louder this time. His voice shook slightly. He tried to stay calm, but unease pressed on his mind. He walked deeper and deeper into the forest, shining the light left and right. He expected to see Max come bounding out of the bushes at any moment. Instead, he found nothing, then he heard it. A low humming sound. At first it was faint, almost hidden under the rustling of the trees. But soon it grew clearer, steady, mechanical, and strange. It was not the sound of any car, not the buzz of insects, not the whistle of the wind. Daniel stopped walking. He held his breath. The flashlight trembled in his hand. The sound seemed to move through the forest like something alive. It pulsed, rising and falling, making the leaves shiver. Daniel turned in circles, trying to find the source, but it was everywhere and nowhere at once. His heart pounded harder with every passing second. "Max?" His voice cracked now. He wanted to believe it was nothing. He wanted to believe his dog would come running any moment, jumping on him like always. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. The humming sound faded, replaced by silence again. A heavy silence. Daniel felt sweat on his forehead, though the air was cool. He moved deeper still, calling Max's name over and over. At last he noticed tracks on the ground. Paw prints. Max's prints. Relief washed over him for a second. He followed them quickly, his flashlight shaking as he hurried. But soon he realized the paw prints were joined by something else. Strange markings in the dirt. Long, sharp lines that did not look like human footprints. They curved in odd patterns, almost burned into the ground. Daniel's mouth went dry. He bent lower, staring at the marks, his heart beating fast. What could have made these? His mind wanted to find a simple answer, maybe some animal, maybe some trick of the soil. But in his heart he knew these marks were not normal. Then a rustle. He froze. The bushes behind him shook as if something large was moving through them. Daniel whipped his light toward the sound. The beam lit up leaves, branches, and shadows. His breath caught in his throat. He thought he saw a shape, tall, thin, not human. "Who's there?" he demanded, though his voice was weak. The forest did not answer. Only the sound of slow movement came again, circling him. Fear took hold of him. He stepped back carefully, his flashlight darting in every direction. His mind screamed to run, but his heart still prayed it was Max. He swallowed hard. "Max, please!" Then came the eyes. Two glowing points appeared in the dark not far from him. They were low to the ground, yet too bright, too steady to be an animal's reflection. They did not blink. They only watched. Daniel's knees weakened. He clutched the flashlight tighter, pointing it straight at the eyes. But the beam only showed more shadows, as if the forest itself was hiding something from him. The eyes moved once, a slow step closer. Daniel's breath stopped. For a moment he thought his life was about to end, but then just as sudden as they appeared, the eyes vanished. The sound of rustling faded into the distance. Silence returned once more. Daniel stood frozen, unable to move. The flashlight flickered. He whispered more to himself than to anyone else. "Max, where are you?" The forest gave him no answer. But deep inside, Daniel knew. Something had taken his dog. And whatever it was not human. The next morning, Daniel woke up on the couch, his flashlight still in his hand. He had not slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those glowing points in the dark. The memory of the strange humming sound and the marks on the ground refused to leave his mind. But one thought hurt more than all the rest. Max was still missing. The sun was already high, pouring light into the small wooden house. Daniel rubbed his face and stood, his body heavy with worry. He opened the door and stared into the forest once again. It looked normal now, calm and green, as if nothing strange had ever happened. But Daniel knew what he saw. He could not explain it, but he knew the forest was hiding something. He made coffee and tried to calm himself, but every sound outside made him turn his head. His ears waited for one sound only, the bark of Max. For hours, nothing came. Then as the afternoon began to fade, Daniel heard it. A bark, faint at first, then louder. His heart leaped. He rushed to the door, hope exploding inside him. "Max!" he shouted, and there he was. Max came running out of the trees, his coat dirty, his eyes bright, tail wagging wildly. Relief hit Daniel so hard he almost fell to his knees. He knelt and hugged Max tightly, burying his face in the dog's fur. "Where were you, boy? I thought I lost you." His voice cracked, filled with emotion. But then, as Max wagged and licked his face, Daniel froze. There were footsteps. Light, careful footsteps. He lifted his head and saw them, two figures stepping out of the shadows of the forest. At first glance, they looked like young girls. Their shapes were human, their faces delicate. But the moment Daniel saw their eyes, he knew they were not like anyone he had ever seen before. Their eyes glowed faintly, silver with a touch of blue like light trapped in water. Their skin shimmered in places where sunlight touched it, leaving soft patterns almost like markings. Their hair was long and strange too, flowing in colors that shifted as they moved, sometimes silver, sometimes pale gold. Daniel's breath caught. He rose slowly, uncertain whether to run or to speak. The girls looked thin, weak, and frightened. They wore strange clothing that looked torn, like thin armor mixed with cloth. Their bare feet were dirty, scratched from the forest. They stared at him, their eyes wide, as if they did not know whether to trust him. Max barked once and then stood between them, wagging his tail as if to say, "They're friends." Daniel frowned, confused. Who are you?" he whispered. The taller girl took a step forward. Her lips moved slowly as though she struggled with the words. Her voice was soft, but it carried an echo that felt unnatural. "We are lost." The younger one clutched her sister's arm and looked around nervously, her glowing eyes darting to the trees. Her breathing was fast, as if she feared being followed. Daniel's hands shook. He had no idea what to say, no idea how to make sense of this. You're not from here." It wasn't a question. It was the only truth he could think of. The taller girl tilted her head. She seemed to understand but did not answer. Instead, she looked at Max. She bent slowly, reached out her hand, and Max licked it without hesitation. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. Daniel's mind raced. He thought of calling the police, of running, of hiding. But a strange pull kept him rooted where he stood. There was something in their faces. Fear, desperation, and something else. Something human. The younger girl whispered something in a language Daniel had never heard before, sharp and musical. The taller girl hushed her, then turned back to him. Her glowing eyes locked on his. "Please," she said simply. Daniel opened his mouth to ask more, but before he could speak, the ground shook slightly. A distant rumble rolled across the forest. It was not thunder. It was too steady, too heavy, like engines moving across the sky. The younger girl gasped. Her eyes widened in terror. She grabbed her sister's hand and pulled her close. Both of them looked to the sky with pure fear. Daniel followed their gaze. In the distance, above the forest, something moved. Dark shapes in the clouds. They were too big, too sharp to be airplanes. They floated slowly, watching, hunting. The sound of their engines made the ground tremble. Daniel's stomach turned cold. His instinct screamed to run, to hide, to escape. But his eyes stayed on the girls. Their faces were pale, their bodies shaking. The taller one looked at him, her voice barely a whisper but filled with weight that froze his blood. "They are coming." Daniel swallowed. "Who?" Both girls spoke together this time, their voices almost one, filled with fear. "Hunters." Night returned to the small town. The air was heavy, as if the sky itself carried a warning. Daniel sat inside his wooden house, the fire in the fireplace glowing faintly. Max lay at his feet, restless, his ears twitching at every sound outside. The two strange girls sat quietly on the floor, close together, whispering in their language. They looked fragile in the warm light, but Daniel knew they were not ordinary children. Their glowing eyes and the way they moved gave them away. Daniel kept pacing back and forth. His mind was a storm. Two alien girls. His dog bringing them home. Strange ships in the sky. And now one single word hanging heavy in his thoughts. Hunters. He finally stopped and faced them. "You need to tell me," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Who are these hunters? Why are they after you?" The older girl raised her eyes slowly. Her voice was calm, but fear lay beneath her words. "Hunters are soldiers. They are sent to find us and bring us back." "Back where?" Daniel asked, though part of him didn't want the answer. The younger girl's hands shook as she clutched her sister's sleeve. She whispered something, and the older one continued. "We are daughters. Daughters of a leader. We escaped. They will not stop until they find us." Daniel stared at them in disbelief. Royal daughters? From another world? He wanted to laugh, but nothing about this was funny. His gut told him they were telling the truth. The fear in their eyes was real. He rubbed his forehead. "Why here? Why my dog? Why my house?" The older girl lowered her gaze. "Because your dog found us. Because he trusts you." "That is enough." Daniel shook his head. He didn't understand. None of it made sense. But before he could ask more, Max leaped to his feet, barking sharply. The ground outside vibrated. The windows rattled. Daniel's heart sank as he heard it, the low hum again. Louder this time, closer. The girl's eyes widened in terror. "They are here," the older one whispered. Daniel grabbed a heavy iron bar he kept near the door. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He motioned for the girls to stay low. His breath came fast, his palms sweating. Max barked again, growling deep in his throat. Then came the lights. Through the cracks of the curtains, Daniel saw beams of white light sweep across the trees outside. They cut through the darkness like blades, moving in slow circles, searching. Strange shadows shifted across the yard. He crept to the window and peeked through. His chest tightened. Figures moved outside, tall, armored, and inhuman. Their bodies glimmered with black metal that reflected the searchlights. Their heads were covered with helmets that had glowing red visors. Each one carried a weapon, long and sharp, humming with energy. Hunters. Daniel's blood ran cold. He ducked back quickly, his heart pounding in his ears. The girls clung to each other, shaking. Max stood ready at the door, teeth bared. The soldiers spread across the yard, scanning with strange devices. One of them stopped, tilting its helmeted head as if it smelled something. Slowly, it turned toward Daniel's house. Daniel held his breath. The soldier raised a clawed hand and pointed. Two others moved forward, their heavy steps shaking the ground. They stopped at the front door. Daniel's grip tightened on the iron bar. He could barely hear anything over the thudding of his own heart. The doorknob rattled once. Then slowly it began to turn. The girls gasped softly. Daniel shook his head at them, motioning for silence. His muscles tensed, ready to strike, even though he knew he had no chance against them. The door creaked open an inch. The red glow from the visor spilled into the room. Max lunged forward, barking wildly. Daniel held him back, whispering harshly, "No, boy, not yet." The door pushed open further. One hunter stepped inside, scanning the room. The light from its weapon swept over the walls. Its movements were cold, calculated, almost mechanical. Daniel froze, hiding behind the doorframe, the iron bar in his hand. Sweat dripped down his face. The soldier's head turned slowly, as if it could sense them in the shadows. The older girl closed her eyes. Her lips moved silently, as if she was praying or whispering a spell. A faint glow began to rise from her hands. Daniel noticed it, his eyes widening. The hunter stopped moving. Its visor turned directly toward the girls. The red glow brightened, and a metallic voice broke the silence. "Target found!" The younger girl let out a cry of fear. The glow in her sister's hands grew brighter, lighting up the dark room. Daniel stared, stunned, as energy flickered between her fingers like lightning. The hunter raised its weapon. Daniel knew he had only a second to act. With a roar, Max lunged forward, knocking into the soldier's legs. The weapon fired, the blast scorching the wall. Daniel swung the iron bar with all his strength. It clanged against the hunter's helmet, sparks flying. The alien soldier staggered back, but not for long. More footsteps thundered outside. Shadows moved toward the door. Daniel realized in that moment they were surrounded. The house shook with heavy footsteps. The hunters were everywhere now, outside, at the windows, at the door. Red light beams scanned through the cracks, searching for the two alien girls who crouched in fear. Max growled low, his body ready to spring. Daniel's grip on the iron bar tightened until his knuckles turned white. The first hunter inside straightened again, its red visor fixed on the glowing hands of the older girl. "Target found," it repeated in that cold, metallic voice, its weapon charged with a rising hum. "Run!" Daniel shouted. He didn't think, he acted. He slammed the iron bar into the creature's arm, knocking the weapon aside. The blast tore into the wall, spraying sparks and smoke. Max leaped at the hunter's chest, teeth sinking into the gaps of the armor. "Go!" Daniel pushed the girls toward the back door. They hesitated, but the older one grabbed her sister's hand and obeyed. They rushed out into the night. Daniel backed after them, swinging wildly at the hunter as more soldiers charged inside. The moment he stepped outside, the forest lit up with beams of white light. Searchlights from above cut through the trees, sweeping back and forth. The humming engines of the alien craft shook the branches overhead. The air was alive with noise and fire. "Move!" Daniel yelled, pushing the girls ahead of him. Max ran at his side, still growling, his fur bristling. The forest swallowed them, but it did not give safety. Behind them, the hunters crashed through trees, their red visors glowing in the dark. Weapons hummed as blasts exploded against trunks, tearing them apart like paper. Splinters rained down as the fugitives stumbled over roots and stones. The younger girl gasped, nearly falling. Daniel caught her arm and pulled her forward. "Keep running!" "Don't stop!" His lungs burned, his heart hammered, but he did not dare slow down. Ahead, the trees thickened, shadows stretching like walls. The girls moved strangely fast, their feet light despite their fear. The older one pulled Daniel toward a narrow path. "This way," she shouted, her voice sharp but certain. Daniel followed, trusting her, though he did not understand how she knew the forest better than he did. The path twisted and turned, but the hunters were not far behind. Their metallic voices echoed, "Targets confirmed. Do not lose them." A blast hit the ground just behind Daniel. The dirt exploded, throwing him forward. He scrambled up, coughing, his ears ringing. Max barked furiously, standing guard while Daniel helped the younger girl back to her feet. The older one raised her hand suddenly. Light burst from her palm, bright and blinding. A wave of energy shot into the trees, knocking down branches and forcing the hunters to stumble. For a brief moment, silence followed. Daniel stared at her in shock. What are you?" he breathed. She didn't answer. Her glowing eyes locked on him, fierce and desperate. "Keep running!" They pushed deeper into the forest. The ground grew uneven, slippery with moss and roots. Every step was a battle. Daniel's chest ached, but fear gave him strength. The humming above grew louder. The craft descended, its searchlights narrowing. The beams swept close, chasing them like giant eyes. The forest lit up like day, and Daniel saw everything in flashes. The twisted roots, the terrified faces of the girls, and the hunters breaking through the undergrowth. Max suddenly barked and darted ahead. Daniel turned his light in time to see water glinting through the trees. A river. Its current was strong, rushing between rocks. "We can't cross that," Daniel shouted, but the older girl shook her head. "It is the only way. They cannot track us in the water." The hunters were closing in, their weapons charging again. Daniel had no time to argue. He grabbed the girls' hands and dragged them forward. They reached the edge of the river. The roar of the water filled his ears. "Jump!" the older girl cried. Daniel pushed the younger one first. She fell into the river with a splash, carried by the current. The older one followed. Then Daniel turned to Max. "Go, boy." But Max growled, refusing to leave him. The hunters broke through the trees at that exact moment, weapons raised. A blast struck the ground, shaking the earth. Daniel shoved Max hard, and the dog leapt into the water at last. Daniel turned and dove after him. Cold water swallowed him instantly, pulling him downstream. The current dragged him under, spinning him around rocks. He fought to keep his head above the surface. His arms flailed, reaching for anything. Through the spray of water, he glimpsed the girls ahead, struggling but alive. Max's head bobbed between them, his fur dark and soaked. Relief filled Daniel, even as fear crushed his chest. But then an explosion. A blast from the hunter's weapon struck the riverbank, sending rocks tumbling. The shock wave slammed into Daniel, tearing him from the surface. He gasped, swallowed water, and was thrown under. The world turned into chaos, dark water, roaring sound, no air. His chest burned. He reached out blindly, but there was nothing. Only cold, crushing current, and then silence. Daniel's vision dimmed as the river carried him away. His last thought before darkness claimed him was simple and desperate. "Where's Max?" Cold water roared in Daniel's ears as the river carried him downstream. His body slammed against rocks. His lungs screamed for air and darkness closed in around him. Then rough hands pulled him upward. His head broke the surface. He coughed violently, sucking in sweet cold air. The older alien girl held him by the arm, her glowing eyes fierce with determination. "Breathe," she commanded, though her voice shook with effort. Together she dragged him toward the riverbank. Daniel clawed at the mud, gasping as the current finally released him. He rolled onto his back, coughing up water, his chest burning with every breath. Beside him, Max shook his wet fur, spraying water everywhere. The younger girl hugged the dog tightly, crying into his soaked coat. Max licked her face, tail wagging weakly. Daniel closed his eyes, relief washing over him. For a moment he wanted to believe they were safe, but safety was an illusion. The hunters were still out there. He could feel it. The older girl crouched beside him. Her hair clung to her face, shimmering faintly even when wet. "You saved us," she said softly. Daniel forced himself to sit up. "I didn't save anyone. We're barely alive." He looked around. The forest was darker here, thicker. The river's roar covered their voices, but that wouldn't last forever. The hunters would search again. The younger girl looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. "Why?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was small, almost childlike. "Why did you help us?" Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know the answer himself. He was just a man. A simple man with a dog and a quiet life. He had nothing to do with aliens or royal fugitives. But when he saw their fear, he couldn't turn away. "Because Max trusted you," he finally said, glancing at his loyal dog. "And because I couldn't leave you there." The older girl's expression softened, but her eyes remained sad. "Few humans would do the same." Daniel frowned. "You talk like you know us." She hesitated, then nodded. "We have watched. From far away. We know what humans are. Some are cruel, some are kind, but most are afraid. Fear rules them." Her words cut deep because Daniel knew they were true. He thought of the men in town, of himself even. Ordinary people rarely chose courage. Max barked softly, breaking the silence. He pawed at the ground near the girls as if reminding Daniel of something. The older girl placed her glowing hand on Max's head. The dog leaned into her touch, calm and trusting. Daniel watched, puzzled. "He brought you to me," he said slowly. "Why? How?" The girl's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "Animals can sense us. Not all, but some. They feel the bond, the light we carry. Your dog felt us before we saw him. He knew we needed someone, and he chose you." Daniel stared at Max, his chest tightening. His dog, his only friend, had brought this entire storm into his life. But somehow Daniel did not feel anger. He felt pride. The younger girl spoke softly now, almost a whisper. "We are not only fugitives. We are heirs," Daniel blinked. "Heirs?" She nodded. "Our father is ruler of a world beyond this sky. We ran away because we did not want to be prisoners of his war. Hunters were sent to find us. If they take us back, we will never be free again." Daniel rubbed his face, trying to process. Royal daughters. A father who ruled worlds, soldiers chasing them across galaxies, and somehow he was in the middle of it. He wanted to ask more, but the older girl stood suddenly, looking toward the trees. Her eyes narrowed. "They will not stop. Not until they have us." Daniel followed her gaze. The forest was quiet, but too quiet. The river roared, yet something about the silence beyond it felt wrong. Max's ears twitched, and he growled low in his throat. The younger girl clutched Daniel's arm, trembling. "They are close again." Daniel's heart pounded. "How do you know?" The older girl raised her hand, and Daniel felt it. A faint vibration in the air, almost like electricity. "Because I can feel them." She closed her eyes, her voice steady but grim. "The hunters are calling their master." Daniel froze. Their master. She nodded slowly. Her glowing eyes opened, reflecting the faint light of the stars above. The mothership. It has arrived. At that moment, the ground shook violently. Trees groaned as leaves rained down. The night sky lit up with a terrible glow. Daniel turned his eyes upward, and his breath caught. Above the forest, massive and silent, hung a ship so large it blocked the stars. Its underside burned with thousands of lights, casting the world in ghostly blue. The air itself trembled from its presence. The younger girl whimpered and buried her face in Max's fur. The older girl's face hardened, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and defiance. Daniel whispered hoarsely, "What do they want with you?" The girl turned to him. "Not just us. They want Earth too." The ground shook under Daniel's feet as the giant ship hovered above the forest. Its lights turned the night into blue daylight, its hum so deep that his bones seemed to vibrate. He stared in awe and terror. Never in his life had he imagined something so massive, so alive, hanging over his world like a predator. The older alien girl gripped his arm tightly. "We must move. If the hunters find us here, there will be no escape." But it was too late. Red beams shot down from the ship, striking the forest around them. Trees cracked and fell as fire lit the night. Shadows of armored hunters marched through the smoke, their weapons humming with power. Max barked furiously, standing between Daniel and the soldiers. Daniel swung the iron bar he still carried, though he knew it was useless now. "Run!" he shouted, pulling the younger girl by the hand. The older one followed close, her eyes glowing bright, her hands sparking with strange energy. They didn't get far. The hunters closed in quickly, surrounding them in a tight circle. Their red visors glowed in the mist, their voices cold and metallic. "Target secured," one said. A blinding flash lit the forest, and in an instant, Daniel felt his body rise off the ground. A beam of light pulled him, the girls and Max, upward. His stomach flipped as the earth fell away. The forest vanished, and then darkness. When the light faded, they were inside the ship. The chamber was enormous, filled with steel walls and glowing lines that pulsed like veins. Strange machines hummed, and the air smelled sharp, metallic. Hunters lined the walls, their weapons ready. The captive stood in the middle of the room, trapped. Daniel staggered, his breath short. Max growled low, his fur bristling, ready to fight. The girls stood close together, their faces pale but their eyes burning with defiance. From the far end of the chamber, a taller figure appeared. This one was different. Its armor was heavier, its visor brighter, its presence commanding. When it spoke, its voice was deeper, filled with authority. "The daughters have returned." Daniel's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a soldier. This was their commander. The younger girl shook with fear, but the older one stepped forward, her chin high. "We will not go back." The commander tilted its head. "You do not have a choice." The hunters raised their weapons. Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything. But what could one man with a piece of iron do against an army? Then Max moved. With a furious bark, the dog lunged at the nearest hunter, teeth snapping. The alien staggered, sparks flying as Max bit down on its weapon arm. Chaos erupted. The chamber filled with shouts and blasts of light. "Now," the older girl shouted. Her hands glowed brighter than ever before. She thrust them outward, and a wave of energy exploded from her body. Hunters were thrown back like ragdolls, smashing into walls. Lights flickered and alarms blared. Daniel grabbed the younger girl and pulled her behind a fallen machine. Max darted to his side, panting, eyes blazing with wild courage. "What did you just do?" Daniel gasped. The older girl crouched beside them, her hands still glowing, her chest heaving. "We are not helpless. We are heirs. We have power." Her eyes locked on his. "But we cannot win alone." Daniel swallowed hard. He had no idea how to fight in a spaceship, no idea how to battle creatures from the stars. But when he looked at Max, at the girls, and at the army marching toward them again, he knew one thing. He couldn't give up now. "Then show me what to do," he said firmly. The girl nodded. "Break their chains. Strike together." Another wave of hunters charged. Daniel swung his iron bar at the first one, knocking its weapon aside. The younger girl screamed, then raised her hand. To Daniel's shock, light burst from her too, smaller than her sister's, but sharp like a blade. It sliced across the hunter's armor, leaving a smoking scar. She stared at her own hands in disbelief. I can do it too." "Good," Daniel said, his voice hoarse. We need all the help we can get. The fight raged. Blasts scorched the walls. Sparks rained from broken machines. Max darted between soldiers, biting, growling, never backing down. Daniel fought with everything he had, swinging until his arms ached. The girls stood together, their glowing energy merging into a storm of light that pushed the hunters back again and again. But the commander did not fall. It raised its massive weapon and fired. A blast of energy tore through the chamber, throwing Daniel and the girls across the floor. Max yelped as the shockwave flung him against a wall. Daniel's ears rang. Smoke filled his lungs. He forced himself up, stumbling, searching for Max. The dog whimpered but stood shaky, still alive. The commander stepped forward, unharmed, its red visor burning brighter. "You cannot win," it growled. The older girl's eyes blazed with fury. "Then we will die free." She raised both hands, her power surging like a sun about to burst. Daniel shielded his eyes as the entire chamber shook. Lights shattered, walls cracked. The energy wave ripped through the ship itself. Alarms screamed. The floor tilted violently. Somewhere deep inside, the ship groaned like a wounded beast. Daniel staggered, gripping Max. His stomach turned cold as realization hit him. The ship was falling. The younger girl screamed as sparks rained from the ceiling. The older one grabbed Daniel's arm. "Hold on!" she shouted. The mothership, massive and terrible, began to plunge toward the earth. The mothership screamed as it tore through the night sky. Fire lit the clouds and the ground below shook as the enormous craft fell toward earth. Inside the broken chamber, alarms blared, red lights flashing across shattered walls. Smoke and sparks filled the air. Daniel held Max close while the alien girls clung to him, their glowing eyes wide with terror. The ship tilted violently, throwing them against the floor. Hunters crashed into walls, their armor sparking. Some tried to regain balance. Others shouted orders in metallic voices, but panic had spread even among them. Daniel gritted his teeth, gripping a rail to keep from sliding. "We have to get out before this thing hits the ground," he shouted. The older girl shook her head. "There is no escape. The ship is too high. If we jump, we will die." Daniel's heart sank, but he refused to give up. He looked at the girls, at Max, and at the chaos around them. "Then we make another way out." The younger girl pointed toward a broken corridor where smoke poured in. "There, the escape pods. If they are not destroyed, we can use them." It was their only chance. Daniel pulled the girls to their feet and ran, Max at his side. Hunters tried to block their path, but the girls' glowing energy cut through the smoke, pushing the soldiers back. Daniel swung his iron bar, his muscles screaming, but he didn't stop. Step by step, they fought toward freedom. The ship groaned louder, metal tearing like thunder. Explosions rocked the halls. Daniel stumbled but forced himself onward, his lungs burning from the smoke. At last they reached a chamber lined with strange pods. Most were destroyed, flames licking their edges, but one still glowed faintly. Its door was open, waiting. Daniel shoved the girls inside. "Go!" But the older one shook her head. "You first. You cannot survive this world of war without us." Daniel almost laughed at the madness of it all. A simple man with a dog now standing inside an alien mothership with two royal fugitives. He had no place here. Yet, he did. Somehow, against all reason, he belonged in this fight. "No," he said firmly. "I'll hold them off. You get inside," Max barked once, as if disagreeing. The dog leaped into the pod first, tail wagging despite the chaos. The younger girl followed, grabbing Daniel's sleeve. "Please." "Don't leave us." The older one met Daniel's eyes. For the first time, she smiled faintly, though her face was tired. "Together," she whispered. Another explosion shook the ship. The floor split, fire bursting from the cracks. Hunters stormed into the chamber, weapons raised. Daniel didn't think twice. He shoved the girls inside, then jumped in after them. The older one slammed her hand on the control panel. The pod's door sealed shut with a hiss. The last thing Daniel saw through the small window was the commander, visor burning red, reaching out as the mothership tore apart. Then the pod launched. The force slammed Daniel against the seat as the pod shot out like a bullet. Flames roared around them as they fell. The girls held onto him tightly. Max pressed against his legs, whimpering but alive. The world spun, the ground rushed up, and for a moment Daniel thought it was the end. Then, impact. The pod smashed into the earth, dirt and smoke flying everywhere. Daniel's vision blurred, his ears ringing. He coughed, forcing his eyes open. The pod's hatch burst and cool night air rushed in. They were alive. The girls crawled out first, helping Daniel and Max. The forest was broken around them, trees fallen from the ship's crash. In the distance, fire burned where the mothership had struck the earth. The sound of explosions echoed across the hills. Daniel stood shakily, staring at the flames. He knew the fight was not over. The hunters were not gone. Their master was not defeated. But for now, they had survived. The older girl touched his arm gently. "You chose us when you could have turned away. Because of you, we are free." Daniel shook his head. "No, because of Max. He found you. He trusted you." He looked down at his loyal dog, who wagged his tail proudly despite his exhaustion. "I just followed his lead." The younger girl smiled for the first time since he had met her. "Then maybe your world still has hope." Daniel looked at the horizon. Above the burning wreckage, the stars shone bright. But now he saw them differently, not as distant lights, but as doors. Doors to other worlds, other battles, other beginnings. The older girl's voice was steady as she spoke. "Our Father will come for us. Others will come too. If you stay, your world will suffer. If you leave with us, you will see the truth of the stars." Daniel stared at her, his heart heavy. Leave Earth? Leave the life he knew? He had nothing here but a broken house and memories of a lonely past. And yet he had Max, he had them now too. He looked at his dog, then at the girls. A choice burned inside him. Finally he smiled faintly, though his hands still trembled. "Then let's go." Far above, through the smoke, another ship appeared in the sky. Sleeker, brighter, unlike the hunter's vessel. It descended slowly, its light golden instead of red. The girl's eyes widened. The older one whispered, "It's not the hunters. It's them. It's ours." Daniel's chest tightened. A new beginning was waiting, not only for them, but for him too. As the golden craft landed, Max wagged his tail, ready for whatever came next. Daniel took a deep breath, stepped forward, and whispered to himself, "One man, one dog, two alien girls, and a whole galaxy ahead."